Star Trek got pretty lucky when it came to FPS games. I mean, we didn't get a whole heap, we actually only got 3, but those that we did get were pretty good. 2 of these were Star Trek Elite Force 1 and 2. They're both games that stick pretty close to the source material and can appease fans of Star Trek for that reason. But I think they'll also appeal to non-fans because of how solid the shooting in both games can be. You don't need to be a huge Trekkie to appreciate the tension in that prologue mission in Elite Force 1 where you're trying to rescue your friends from the Borg cube. The third and sadly final game, and one you don't hear people talking about all that much, is Star Trek The Next Generation Klingon Honor Guard. Developed by MicroProse, a development team who are super important in the gaming industry, responsible for the XCOM and Civilization series, both of which are still around to this day. Klingon Honor Guard was released in 1998 and it ran on the Unreal Engine, and talk about some stiff competition. That year alone it had Unreal, Half-Life, Sin and Turok 2 among many others to compete with. People who talk about this game talk about it like it's some kind of flawless masterpiece, and I don't think I've heard anyone say something bad about it. It does come from that time period where the FPS genre was just churning out classic after classic, so the big question is, how does it all stack up? Well, let's beam down and find out.
I am the Hand of Kalos!
Now, Klingon Honor Guard does try to tell a pretty involved story, but like watching the TV series, I usually just tune out pretty quickly. The general gist is that you're a member of the eponymously named Klingon Honor Guard, a badass, blood-hungry warrior with a scrotum on your forehead, going around mines, space stations and prisons as you carry out your Klingon Honor Guard duties. Add in some cute alien girls here and there and you've got my attention just long enough to keep me hooked. What's actually pretty cool too is that the guy giving you your orders is voiced by Tony Todd, who also does the voice of the Vortigaunts in Half-Life 2. And horror movie fans will remember him as the Candyman from the 1992 film with the same name.
It is time to end this conspiracy, and to do so you must locate the Feklar's commander.
Anyway, at the start of the game, you're able to input your name and choose between playing as a male or female, which as far as I can tell doesn't really affect anything outside of the noise your character makes. Obviously, if you're playing as a male, it's going to have a male voice actor and vice versa for the female. Then after that, you're basically just thrown right into your first mission. You're given an objective at the beginning of each level during a cinematic that has such a low resolution you can probably count the amount of pixels on one hand. But despite having objectives, I often just find myself shooting my way through each level until I find the exit. I think a reason for this is because the level design doesn't really have all that much of a flow to it. There's very little unique landmarks or structures to help you identify where you are. Everything just kind of looks very similar. Gotta say too, I never thought the Unreal Engine was all that impressive, even in its heyday. It always lost out to the Quake 2 or 3 engine, and I think Honor Guard is probably one of the weaker looking games to use it. It does have pixelated alien arse though, so it's got that going for it. And get a load of this, it's probably one of the trippier environments I think I've seen in a video game. It looks like one of those old Magic Eye puzzles. There is a variety from mission to mission in terms of the kind of environments, but in each mission you really just do get a sense of monotony, as it feels like you're just walking down the same looking corridor over and over, flipping switches that are often hard to see because they blend in with the walls. It's even got a couple of sewer type levels as well. I guess it wouldn't be a 90s FPS if it didn't have sewer levels. Not that it's all bad though, in fact there's a few creative spots here and there, like this bit where you've got these special boots that let you walk around in zero gravity, and when you kill enemies they float away spinning around slowly, spurting out blood. When you get killed during this bit, your body just goes flying off, spinning around as your lifeless corpse goes hurtling into space. One of the first things I noticed when I started playing though was the movement controls, which are just really bad. Out of all the FPS games on the Unreal Engine, this has to be one of the worst of the bunch. I mean, I think even Nerf Arena Blast feels better. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, your strafe speed is slower than when you're moving forward or backwards. So what happens is when you're sidestepping during combat, the movement kind of slows down a bit, making it feel really stilted and everything just feels kind of laboured. Aiming and firing weapons doesn't feel great either. I know it might look like my aim is just bad from some of the gameplay footage, but trust me, it just feels really off to the point that you'll miss more shots than you really should. Maybe it's got something to do with the mouse filtering, but I don't know. The starting weapons feel really crappy too, and they fire these really slow moving projectiles. The Klingon disruptor pistol is the first weapon you get, and it never runs out of ammo, which is handy because half your shots are going to miss. Soon after this you'll get the disruptor rifle, which is an automatic weapon and fires pretty much the exact same projectiles as the pistol, though I think the rifle's projectiles might be slightly faster, but not really that much though that it makes all that much of a difference. On a positive side though, the weapons like this really highlight how good the enemy AI is. Seems all of the games running on the Unreal Engine had some pretty adaptive AI, the kind that would react to what you were doing accordingly, so in Klingon Guard you'll see enemies roll left and right and generally stay pretty mobile to make it harder to hit them. Funny thing too is that the toughest enemy in the game are the stationary turrets. Thankfully you only encounter these a few times in the entire campaign, because they can kill you in seconds even when you've got full health and armor. They're annoying, they piss me off, and I don't like them. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The other weapons include the Assault Disruptor. Yeah, another disruptor, which functions like a shotgun, firing projectiles that spread out over a distance. I'd say this is probably the most useful gun in the game because it does pretty good damage and is accurate at close to medium ranges, which is where most of the combat takes place. But what really annoys me is that it shares its ammo type with the rifle, making essentially one of them obsolete as a fallback weapon. Why they did this, I've got no idea. They did the same thing with a grenade and rocket launcher. Both weapons use the same ammo type, which just doesn't make sense to me. Even Quake 1 is guilty of this too, with its grenade and rocket launcher. It's actually not a huge issue here though, because the rocket launcher is so superior to the grenade launcher that once you get it, you'll probably forget the grenade launcher even exists. But I mean, still, come on, different ammo types, guys. It's not that hard. Probably one of the coolest weapons is this razor boomerang thing called a ding pa or a ding puck that attaches itself to an enemy, then just kind of grinds them from the inside out until they're dead before homing back to the player. It reminds me a bit of the razor wind from Turok 2, and that's a good thing. You can even cause it to explode inside someone with the alternate fire as well. Easily the best weapon in the game though is the Sith Harp Blaster, mainly because it's the only hit scanning weapon in the entire game, meaning you don't have to deal with the slow moving speed of most of the weapon's projectiles. You don't get all that much ammo for it though, which makes sense considering how powerful it is. Wouldn't really be doing Star Trek justice if you could play as a Klingon and not use a Bat'leth. I mean, that thing goes with Klingons like a lightsaber goes to a Jedi, or fedoras to Mountain Dew. It's one of the most iconic weapons in the Star Trek franchise, and here in Klingon Guard, I'd say it's definitely been done justice. This thing pretty much kills most standard enemies in a couple of hits, and if it doesn't, you can often stun lock them until they're dead anyway. And even the basic knife you're given at the start of the game does a whole heap of damage too. Now, I have a theory here that they made the shooting kind of crappy on purpose and didn't give you all that much ammo early on in the game in the hopes that you'd use the melee weapons instead, because it's just really a lot more fun barreling into rooms and hacking everything to pieces. To me, it feels like how the game's meant to be played. There's a fair few missions in the game as well. All up, I think there's about 20, and some of these are broken down into sub-stages which can take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to complete each. They've also included a bot match mode like Unreal, and it also kind of foreshadows what would eventually happen in Star Trek Elite Force with the Holo match. But I'd rather get warts on my dick hole than play this mode. It's horrid. The map design sucks and it shows just how bad the controls can be. Luckily, Honor Guard isn't one of those rare sought-after games that's going to set you back hundreds of dollars. I paid about $20 for my copy off eBay, which is still pretty high, but understandable given its age and lack of demand. Thing is though, you can't install it off the CD, at least as far as I could tell, so what I ended up having to do anyway, even after buying a copy, was just downloading a cracked version of the game, where someone had already put everything into a folder and all I had to do was double click an EXE to get it all running. It's kind of a shame that it's such a prick to install, considering you don't really have this issue with most other Unreal Engine games. Is it worth it though? Well, to be honest, Sonny Jim, that's kind of a loaded question. I mean, it's not an amazing game, but nor is it really a bad game either. More so, it just has a whole heap of little minor things that annoy me, which I think stop it from being timeless. Like, I find the heads-up display to be a hindrance at times. When you get armor, it adds this border to the window to, I guess, visually represent your increased damage resistance, but it just clutters everything up. I mean, just look at it. I feel like I'm playing Descent. It looks like a goddamn cockpit or something. 99% of ammo and health pickups are inside crates that you have to smash. And obviously you're not going to want to waste ammo on shooting these things, so what you have to do is swap back and forth to a melee weapon to smash them. It's just annoying and kind of time consuming. The automatic doors though are by far the worst. Every time you go near a door it opens, but if you move back the door closes. And it's really annoying when you're trying to shoot enemies in another room, as it kind of forces you to rush into that room. Or else the door's just going to keep shutting in your face. So many Unreal Engine games are guilty of this stupid auto-opening and closing door mechanic, and I've never understood how hard it is to just add in a goddamn interact or use button. I mean, Doom had it, and that game's half a decade older. At the end of the day, here's the cold hard truth. If you're a Star Trek fan, I'd say it's probably worth checking out. To the best of my knowledge, there's no other games that let you play as a busty female Klingon and go around murdering people with a Bat'leth. But if you're simply into FPS games, I don't know if it's really all that amazing considering what it does has been done better. Star Trek Elite Force 1 and 2 are far better shooting games and equally as enjoyable for actual fans of Star Trek, as opposed to those who say they are but limit their expertise to reading Wikipedia pages. But hey, you can't deny Klingon Honor Guard delivers that sweet, sweet pixelated alien arse.